At 1:23 a.m., a safety test began. Within seconds, reactor number 4 was out of control. The explosion was only the beginning. The real danger was invisible.
In the middle of the night, a group of engineers began a safety test. It was supposed to be routine, just another procedure inside one of the most powerful nuclear plants in the Soviet Union. But within minutes, that test would turn into one of the worst disasters in human history. A reactor would explode. A city would be abandoned. Thousands of people would be exposed to an invisible enemy. And for hours, the world would not even know what had happened. Because the most terrifying part of Chernobyl was not only the explosion, it was what came after. The silence, the confusion, and the invisible poison spreading through the air. This is the story of Chernobyl, the disaster they tried to hide. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant stood near the city of Pripyat, in what was then the Soviet Union. Pripyat was young, modern, and full of life. It had schools, apartment blocks, shops, playgrounds, and families who believed they were living in a place of progress. Many of the people who lived there worked at the nuclear plant. To them, Chernobyl was not a symbol of fear.
It was a symbol of the future. But inside reactor number 4, something dangerous was beginning. That night, operators were preparing for a safety test. The idea was simple. If the plant lost power, could the turbines keep the cooling pumps running for a short time? It was meant to prove safety. But the test itself would help create the disaster. The reactor was already unstable. Power levels had dropped too low. Operators tried to raise them again. Safety systems were disabled. Procedures were ignored. And the reactor had design flaws that made everything worse. In the control room, the men working that night did not fully understand what was happening. To them, it was a test. To the reactor, it was a countdown.
At 1:23 a.m., everything changed. The power inside the reactor suddenly surged. In seconds, the situation became uncontrollable. Then came the explosion. The blast tore through reactor number 4. The roof was blown open. Radioactive material was thrown into the air. A second explosion followed. Fire spread through the building, and the core of the reactor was exposed to the open sky. This was not a normal accident. This was a nuclear reactor burning in the night. But at first, many people did not understand the truth. Some workers thought a water tank had exploded. Others believed the reactor itself was still intact. That mistake was deadly. Because the reactor was not intact. It was open, and radiation was pouring out.
Firefighters arrived quickly. They came to fight what looked like a normal fire. They saw flames, smoke, destroyed metal, debris everywhere. But they could not see the real danger. Radiation has no color, no smell, no sound. It does not announce itself. It enters the body silently. The firefighters climbed onto the roof. They walked near pieces of graphite from the reactor core. Some picked up debris without knowing it was intensely radioactive. Their mission was to stop the fire from spreading to the other reactors. And in many ways, they succeeded. But they paid a terrible price. Many of the first responders received extreme radiation doses. Some began feeling sick within hours. Nausea, weakness, burning skin, a strange metallic taste. They had not just fought a fire. They had walked into the heart of a nuclear disaster.
While workers and firefighters were suffering,
The nearby city of Pripyat was still sleeping. The people did not know the truth. When morning came, life continued. Children went outside. Families opened their windows. People walked through the streets. Some residents looked toward the plant and saw smoke rising from the reactor. There were rumors. There was confusion. But there was no immediate evacuation, no clear warning, no full explanation. The danger was already everywhere. In the air, on the ground, on clothes, on shoes, on playgrounds. That is what makes Chernobyl so terrifying. For many people, the world still looked normal. The sun came up, buses ran, people went to work. But an invisible enemy was moving through the city.
More than a day after the explosion, the order finally came. Pripyat had to be evacuated. Residents were told the evacuation would be temporary. They were told to take only essential items, documents, some clothes, a little food. Many believed they would return in a few days, so they left behind furniture, photos, toys, pets, entire lives. Buses arrived to take people away from the city. One by one, families left their homes. Apartment doors closed. Schools became empty. Playgrounds became silent. The city that had been built for the future became a ghost town. Pripyat was never truly lived in again.
That is one of the most haunting parts of Chernobyl. Not just the explosion, not just the radiation, but the sudden stop of ordinary life. A classroom left unfinished, a doll on the floor, a Ferris wheel that would never carry children, a city frozen in time. The people of Pripyat thought they were leaving for a short time, but they were leaving forever. As the disaster grew, so did the pressure to control the story. The Soviet Union was known for secrecy. Bad news was not easily admitted. Mistakes were not easily confessed. And Chernobyl was more than a mistake. It was a failure of technology, leadership, safety, and truth. At first, information was limited. The world did not immediately receive a full explanation. But radiation does not respect borders. Soon, radiation was detected outside the Soviet Union. Other countries began asking questions. Something serious had happened, and the Soviet Union could no longer keep it hidden. A nuclear disaster could be hidden from people, but it could not be hidden from the atmosphere. The radioactive cloud had already moved across the hearts of Europe. Chernobyl had become a global event. Back at the plant, a desperate battle was underway. The destroyed reactor continued to release radiation. Helicopters flew over the open reactor, dropping materials like sand, clay, and boron to reduce the fire and contamination. Workers were sent into dangerous areas. Soldiers were mobilized. Miners were brought in. Thousands of people became part of the cleanup. They were called liquidators. Their job was to contain the disaster, to clean contaminated areas, to remove radioactive debris, to build barriers, to stop the poison from spreading even further. Some knew the risk. Others did not fully understand it.
One of the most dangerous jobs was clearing radioactive debris from rooftops near the reactor. Robots were tried, but high radiation damaged many machines. So humans were sent instead. Men ran onto the roof for only seconds at a time. They picked up radioactive material, threw it over the edge, and ran back. Seconds mattered, because staying too long could mean death. Chernobyl was not only a disaster of one night, It became a long battle between humans and radiation. Eventually, the destroyed reactor was covered with a massive concrete and steel structure known as the sarcophagus. It was built to trap radioactive material inside, but it was not a perfect solution. It was built quickly, under extreme conditions, around one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Years later, a larger protective structure was built over the old one to improve containment.
But Chernobyl could never simply be erased. The land remained contaminated. Villages were abandoned. Families were relocated. The exclusion zone became a symbol of what happens when invisible danger meets human error. Nature slowly returned. Trees grew through streets. Animals moved through empty towns. But beneath that strange beauty, the history remains. Some places are not empty because people forgot them. They are empty because people were forced to leave. The human cost of Chernobyl is still debated. Some people died quickly. Others suffered later. Some effects were obvious. Others were harder to measure. But beyond the numbers, Chernobyl left another kind of damage. Fear, distrust, trauma. Families lost homes. Workers lost health. Children grew up with stories of a place they could never return to. And the world lost part of its confidence in nuclear technology. Before Chernobyl, many saw nuclear power as a symbol of progress. After Chernobyl, they saw something else too.
Risk, secrecy, human weakness. A machine can be powerful. A system can be advanced. But if people ignore warnings, hide mistakes, and silence the truth, technology can become a disaster. That is why Chernobyl still fascinates the world. It is not just because of radiation. It is not just because of the abandoned city. It is because the story feels like a warning. The disaster began with a test meant to prove safety. But instead, it revealed how fragile safety really was. It showed that danger does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it begins in a control room, with a decision, a delay, a mistake, a warning ignored. And when the explosion finally comes, it may already be too late.
Chernobyl was not one failure. It was many failures stacked on top of each other. A flawed design, poor decisions, unsafe actions, a culture of secrecy, and a system that feared embarrassment more than danger. That combination turned one night in 1986 into a disaster the world would never forget. Today, Pripyat still stands, but it is not the same city. The buildings remain, the streets remain, the schoolrooms remain, but the people are gone. The silence is what makes it terrifying. Because silence is not always peace. Sometimes, silence is what remains after everything has been taken away. The Ferris wheel never became a place of joy. The apartments never welcomed their families back. The city never returned to normal.
Chernobyl became a monument to the invisible. Invisible radiation, invisible mistakes, invisible lies, and invisible consequences that can last for generations. On the night of April 26, 1986, a safety test began inside Reactor Number 4. By morning, the world had changed. But the people closest to the disaster were not told the full truth. They breathed the air. They walked the streets. They watched the smoke rise. And they had no idea that history was already moving through them. That is the horror of Chernobyl. Not only that a reactor exploded, but that for a time, life continued as if nothing had happened. The sun rose over Pripyat. Children played outside. People went to work. And an invisible disaster spread silently around them. Chernobyl was the disaster they tried to hide. But some disasters are too large to bury. Some truths escape into the air. And once they do, the whole world breathes them in.